are on Beyond Tales with Peace. And today I'm not alone. I have my beautiful sister, a God lover and God chaser with me. Her name is Erin Holly, and she is Miss Hardworking here at C of O, the College of the Ozarks, Missouri. I'll have her sharing her story of strength, how the Lord was able to comfort her and empower her through a very tough season in her life, and how she kept trusting despite all she experienced. And I'll pass it over to Erin. You just tell us some things about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Erin Holly, and since coming to College of the Ozarks, I've been going by Ren, which has been a really sweet experience too. But I grew up as a missionary kid. My parents were missionaries to the military, and so we worked with an organization that partners with the chapel to provide community for believers overseas. And I mean, just really anybody in the military overseas and at home. So growing up in that environment is a pretty high transition environment, and so that's a little bit of my background, and a lot of leaving and coming back, and so or less coming back, more just people leaving.
More leaving than coming back.
But it's been really sweet. We were in South Korea for 4.5 years, and then we were in Alaska for 10 years before I came down to college here. So yeah.
That's amazing to see how missionary kids kind of have some things in common. We have a lot of the aspect of people leaving a lot in our lives. And I've talked to several other missionary kids, and I don't know if it's planned, but it's not planned. It just happens because we are always we're serving, but we cannot always guarantee that the people who come in would stay forever. We're not trying to keep them. And even Jesus never tried to keep people that much. It's just as humans, we wish people would stay, And yes, but we're actually looking at the story of the two wonderful sisters in the Bible, Mary and Martha, and how they had a brother who they lost. And Jesus said he loved this young man. And the Bible kept explaining how Mary was the one who actually anointed the feet of Jesus with oil and cleaned it up with her hair. And Jesus loved this family dearly, but that did not stop him from waiting for the right time to show up for them, despite the fact that they prayed and they asked him to show up. And Jesus came after their brother had spent 4 days in the tomb. And I wanted to say that Erin here has kind of a story that she has actually physically been part of that kind of experience. And she had felt it, and she understands still trusting in a very deep way. And Erin, I just want to let you share about the love of your life, who you met here on campus, and you both knew each other for 2 years. You were married for 2 months, and he went to the Lord. The Lord took him home. So if you just share that with us and tell us how you were able to keep trusting in that season.
Yeah. So my husband and I met at College of the Ozarks during the COVID semesters. We were all in a really close community, locked on campus, but it was sweet for me.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we met, and our relationship developed in community over the next couple of years. And we got married in May of 2022, a year ago, 22. Yeah. And so, so it was really precious to be able to have that relationship with him, and know that the reason that our relationship worked was because we both loved the Lord first. Most of the time, as well as we can. Yeah, with being human. Yeah. And I would say that's what has brought me through this season of his name was Caleb, and Caleb wasn't my everything, my all. Jesus was my all. Yes. Caleb was a wonderful blessing that helped me grow to know the Lord more. That encouraged me in myself and in my faith. And so there's so much of who I am now that I attribute to knowing Caleb, which is God's work through him in my life. Which is such a blessing. So we were married in May, and we had a really beautiful half of a summer. together here in Missouri, outside of College of the Ozarks. And when he passed away initially, like there was an evening he was coming back from work, and there was a car accident, and so he was a couple hours late coming home, and I was like, I'm getting a little like nervous and like worried. Like I don't really know where he is. Like maybe he's out doing something or getting something. So there's a lot of trust of just like I know that like he'll get back with me if he's okay, you know.
Yes, yeah.
It was interesting too. I had a bit that I journaled that night, which I really don't know how I was able to journal what I did, but it was just like after I found out I had actually my bosses that I was working for at the time, they came and were able to like sit with me while the police were there.
Yeah.
And it was really sweet to have that in a time where I was just trying to like process the shock of it all. I don't know if I could really explain what I experienced aside from just like reading some of what I wrote. So in the shock of that evening,
go ahead, please.
I asked for like the Lord to give me patience to grieve. And I said, I feel no anger toward my God, who understands so much more than I do the loss that I am going through. I feel no anger towards my God, who even through the terrible, has brought something wonderful to pass in bringing Caleb home. I feel no anger at my God, who is patiently waiting to return so that none may perish without hope. Because even like with losing him, there was so much hope of like, I know that he's gone home. So I feel no anger at my God, who's comforting me through the many brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers that are coming around me as my lover is gone. I feel no anger at my God, who is already giving me a hope for the future. I only pray that Christ remains my anchor, the anchor of my hope, as I long for the days of reunion with him. And I pray that the Lord would teach me how to long for communion with Caleb once again in right order. Because a fear of mine initially was like, I want to go to heaven just to see Caleb again, not actually because my priority is in Jesus. And so that was like a fear, but at the same time, it's been such a beautiful place of worship for me as I think about like my husband being in heaven, both in like the husband that I had here, and also like being the bride of Christ.
Amen.
Like the wedding.
You have two husbands.
yeah. Somehow that works. But of just like the beauty of like as I'm worshiping, there's this picture of the future of like we're all worshiping together, and it's like time stops existing. Like now I get to see and imagine that like Caleb is like with God and like worshiping God, and that I'm also worshiping God in this moment, and like we're together and doing that. So it's just like an incredible unity in the body of Christ, like throughout time and across death. And I said, I feel no anger at my God of giving me a greater understanding of sorrow and grief. I feel no anger at my God for relieving Caleb's pain and for bringing him home. Funny note, he had horrible allergies. So it was like really bad back pain, so it was like, I know that like he's doing so much better than he ever was here. And it's just like, even that's a blessing of like he's comfortable. If he's asleep or with the Lord.
But that is amazing to see how much you were able to write this.
I have no idea.
Like, I cannot even But that is so beautiful though, the strength that God sends us when we are going to grieve. And most times people will be like, oh, I cannot take this. You know, if you've not experienced it, you don't know how you're going to react at the moment.
My mom was telling me, like, God doesn't give us what we don't need.
Yes.
And so, like, as I've shared my story, I realized that, like, for a lot of people, it induces a lot of anxiety of, like, oh my gosh, like, I could never imagine, like, going through that and, like, being able to trust the Lord. Like, I would give up, you know? And I just, like, encourage you all now of, like, it might not be something that you ever have to go through, and if so, praise the Lord, but, like, anything that you go through, because none of our lives are really easy than anyone else's. Because I know that, like, with my story, there are people who've gone through so much more, so much less. It's not even helpful to compare.
It's just so, you know, like, no one can actually say, I have it more, I have it less. And we can't even actually blame God for it, because who should have it more and who should have it less?
Yeah.
We live in a fallen world, a world that is prone to pain, a world that is prone to sickness, a world that is just sad all the time. And the reason why Jesus came was actually to send some peace, like to bring some peace into this chaos that we have right here. And the fact that most people actually turn against him instead of realizing that, oh, he's here to help clean the mess we need. Like, we put ourselves in this. Like, this was all us. Like, most of the situations we see, the situation with the person who maybe collided with him, the accident, everything. It's just humans not doing what we should do at the right time most of the time. And then we're all hurting, right? And then Jesus is there saying, okay, I'm coming to save you. I'm coming to help you. I'm coming to give you peace. It's harder especially for me, to want to accept that, because I want to be like, why did you not stop this from happening? And I know you were saying, wanting to be able to keep trusting your God, even in the midst of that situation. And that is amazing that you found that strength. I must say, I'm very grateful. and like, just to say,
me too.
I know. And then like, yeah. And I just like, you already said some things about it, but did you struggle to trust God's comfort? To know that you were comforted by God? I know you said you had like people with you seated, which was amazing. Having humans like with you when you're grieving is always a blessing. But it's like, did you struggle to feel like God was comforting you at that moment? Did you struggle to find comfort after that day? Like you got that adrenaline rush and grace. I feel like that's what happened. But after that, when it kind of dawned on you, like, did you struggle to find comfort?
I'd say there was such a beautiful community that came around. And so I don't know, obviously there was very few times when I didn't feel sad.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
During the first month. And even with that, each day kind of held its ridiculously low lows and its joy and laughter.
Yes.
My family got to come in, and my new family too, with my in-laws, and so they all came in, and all of the people who loved Caleb came around too.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
And so even in the processing of the grief, there were always people around, and there was always also space to be alone. So it's I was so incredibly blessed. In some ways, where it makes it almost feel like I got it too easy.
That is amazing. That's kudos to the humans around you, though. The people got planted in your life for that season. Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
I would say one thing that I did struggle with was putting my hope and my comfort in other people, as opposed to in the Lord.
Yes. Yeah.
For honestly, the 6 months after he passed away, I had a really significant hope of having a relationship again with a particular individual who was really close right after Caleb passed away. And I think my heart is just wanting to kind of get back some semblance of what it had, which is a really common thing in grief. Of just the bargaining of I want back what I had, and kind of projecting that it would be really similar or better to have this thing.
Yeah.
And so I had to work. Well, the way I worked through that was when the hope kind of had to die because it wasn't an option anymore. And that was, again, 6 months of kind of having this complicated hope, grief mix.
Wow. Yeah.
That made it easier for me to kind of process the loss initially, or deal with the massive waves of grief, because I was like, oh, look, I might kind of have it back. And that wasn't anything I was thinking consciously, but it's definitely was still in my mind. I didn't feel abandoned or alone. As of after Christmas, after this semester, when that hope had to not be a hope anymore. It's been really enlightening of just how much is my trust and faith actually in God, and it's been encouraging for me to think about finding comfort in the Lord. But definitely not easy. It's really easy for me, when I'm alone, instead of leaning into who God is, and leaning into His Word, to just distract myself, on my phone, or get really just like down and not reach out to the people he's placed around me to like encourage and comfort me.
Yes.
And so I do have like a tendency to isolate, even from God, at least from engaging with God.
I know. It's like running away from the pain you feel, or just run away from thinking about what's going on in your life, right? Because most times, like I don't know how to explain this, but sometimes just like taking that moment to be quiet or be with the Lord makes us actually see feel how much we're hurting. And I do that a lot. So I run away from that place of quiet because I don't want to feel, I don't know how to explain, I don't want to feel how sad I am.
Yeah.
And like you said, I go on my phone, I do something else, I hang out with people, and I'm just like, just laughing so hard, just trying to be so joyful because I'm suppressing the pain I'm feeling in my heart.
Yeah, and I think while there's space for reprieve, there's definitely like so like there's a reason why grief kind of comes in waves because we can't take the full force of it all the time. But with that, I think that there's a lot of beauty in just kind of like not being afraid of feeling. Just a lot easier for me to like step into grief and to like mourn and to deal with the fears of like being alone. Ironically, like with other people. Like when I see other people who are mourning for him, like being with his family is super helpful for me because it's like they're still in a space where they're processing. Like I went from seeing him every day to like not seeing him. You know? And so I had to kind of get used to the fact and kind of realize sooner that he's not here anymore. Whereas like they would see him once every couple months. So like getting used to the fact that like he's not here anymore it's more difficult. And it's just different. Everyone's experience with grief is incredibly different. Even if it's the same person that people are losing. So that's something that I learned too, of just like having grace for each other in the ways you grieve differently. And grace for yourself in not grieving the same as other people too.
No, but that's for real. Like you talked about, everyone's experience with grief is different, and that's for real.